right, and we're live. It's DJ Falling Up G, but now just David. Live this time with not best friend Strangled Angles, aka Paul, but with my brother, Aaron, who does not have a magic screen name by which I will refer to him as, fortunately for him, probably. We're trying something new today, again, after starting in Magic and getting tired of where the formats are there, doing a bunch of album reviews, which I will continue doing with Paul, but just breaking things up a little. Uh, Aaron had the idea when we were spending time over the holiday season together to try doing some book reviews. A few years ago, was a bigger reader than I have been lately. Had a year where I read like 60 books in 2022 pre-kids and 40 in 2023, and then dropped off real hard from there, and now I've like read probably, if you include audiobooks, I've still at least read like 10 to 15 books over the last couple of years. But if you don't include audiobooks, it's like 3 or 4. So, trying to get back in the swing of it. Definitely miss it. Had a lot of fun those few years with my wife, and my wife's a big reader too. And then Aaron and our older brother Jacob, like my mom, a lot of reading in the family. It's always fun talking books with everybody. Get lots of like varied recommendations because everyone's tastes are a little different. And so we were talking that thought it could be fun to review a book, and this was a fun one because I kind of like it. The gifting didn't work out exactly how planned. Basically gifted you this book as an audiobook. That was the goal. And then It had to be like not a direct actual, had to be here's a credit that please use on this book, because my wife read this book and my mom, and they both loved it and gave it a 5, and then so it was like kind of top of my to be read list for a very long time, and finally was like, let's use this as Aaron's gonna read it, like use this as an excuse to finally bite the bullet and read another book, and did get through it pretty quick considering it's a pretty big book, like it's a lot of pages and the pages are dense, so like kind of I didn't quite realize the extent to which, I mean, I know, I think you've read bigger, more dense books even since this one, and just but for me, like, this was not a trivial read. Yeah. I expected it to be a page turner, and I would, because of what people said about it, and I would say that it like technically was, but the pages still turned slowly because there was so much text per page and so much happening. So kind of ended up being a little more of an endeavor to do as my first book, like really back into reading than I expected, but I got through it. You beat me by a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the audiobook helped. I mean,
Yeah, you did both the same audiobook with
audiobook with text, which I think I've now done for 3 books in a row, and that's
cool.
I'm
so
really enjoying that.
You're doing it more. Yeah, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
I
fun.
don't know.
Maybe I'll give that a try sometime.
Yeah, I think it's my um it's definitely helped me just get really immersed in the last 3 books I've read and get through them pretty quickly, despite all being pretty dense books. But I'm wondering if what I'm going to say is a weakness of this book is maybe due to that fact, where I'm going through it with the audiobook.
Yeah, interesting.
And maybe just not noticing quite as much of the quality of prose as I might if I were reading it more slowly.
Okay. Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, so I have to confess, so if you've watched any of the album reviews, well, first of all, if you haven't watched any of the album reviews, what are you doing with your life? Just kidding. I'm not going to be no, like and subscribe. No, just kidding. I'm not doing that. But it's a similar format to the album reviews, with the caveat of this time, my prep time was real low today and the past few days. So hopefully I'll put a little more effort in and have a little more time to invest. Kind of trying to fit this review in before I go on a family trip, which is causing us to do a lot of prep. After the family trip, we'd suddenly be like fast forward 2.5 weeks down the road out from having finished the book. So it made sense to try to fit this in before doing that vacation, but been a little strapped for time. So I'm going to be kind of filling this out a little bit in real time, which I know from experience won't work super well. But that's just the way I'm going to do it. Also, I feel like I'm going to be rusty doing a book review compared to an album review because it's just pretty different, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, I'm hoping Aaron will help me flex these muscles, get them back in shape a little bit, and then we're hoping this will be a somewhat regular thing, probably less often than album reviews because I'm a slow reader right now, but if the reading picks up, it could be even more frequent than the album reviews, because some albums it takes like 2 months to listen to enough times when it's like net new for both Paul and I too, so who knows, it'd be fun to have these in the mix with the album reviews too. But yeah, we're pretty much going to do a similar format. What stands out, strengths, weaknesses, kept the predictions section, which always throws Paul for a loop, but thought it could be fun. See what we guess that each other will think there, and then of course final rating with a very parallel rating scale to what I use for albums. That was actually surprisingly easy to translate into books. I felt like my same paradigm worked there. So I don't have the same degree of like a layout here. Like Aaron and I were talking before that we started the stream. Like it's not as convenient to just go like track by track through an album, which basically gives you a free outline of how to navigate going through in that way. So I will say I typically divide up like my thoughts on books into like plot, characters, setting, and then just like quality of writing. I feel like maybe I'm missing a category, but I used to write album reviews on Goodreads.
Theme or something.
Oh, themes. Yeah, themes. Yeah, that would be one. Yeah, I feel like that there was like 4 or 5 things that I would like try to mention when I would do short reviews on Goodreads back when I was reading a lot. So I'll definitely be trying to like at least say something about all those areas, but otherwise I don't have too much of a like outline in my head for where to go with this. So I don't. If you have anywhere you want to start, feel free to take it away. Otherwise, I can do like maybe a brief plot summary.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, we're just winging it, and
Yep.
who knows? We're just trying to. Hopefully, it's just for fun, and if we do more of these, we'll, I'm sure, refine how we tackle the discussion over time.
Yeah.
I just think the easiest place to start with this book is the main theme of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this book is, well, one of my biggest compliments of the book is that I'm surprised how relevant this book is to the times, right? Like the current times that we live in.
Yeah.
It basically the entire point of this book, I think, is to draw attention to groups of people in our country who are typically ignored. That would be perhaps the quote hillbillies, as it's definitely known in this book, and
rednecks.
Really representing a group of people in the middle of the country who are poor and for whom there's not a lot of like work for them, and they live in what would be known as flyover states and just get basically no love or attention from the country, but are undergoing serious crises in the meantime that it's tragic for them to be ignored for. And these crises include, everything from just, well, drug addiction, one of the most prominent ones, and then the effects of drug addiction as they relate to loss of family, a plethora of children in orphanages and foster care.
Yep.
Insufficient systems of foster care for actually getting children into good homes, poor teachers, poor school districts, all of these things, right?
Yeah, that was an incredibly succinct summary of the major themes, I'd say.
Yeah, and I really feel like that's
that's
from
the
a
meat
high
of the
level.
book. Yeah,
it's the meat of the book. And one of the where I was actually going with that, to add like 2 more sentences to it or so, is I find it incredibly impressive that this book can feel so much like of the times and still be what I will later call it. I don't know if I think it's in one of my strengths. It's
and you can
still
unhighlight stuff
also,
whenever you want, by the way. If you're like saying one of your points right now, you can just do it in real time.
Sure.
Or you don't have to. Yeah. You can actually do this. Whenever I'm with Paul, I have to unhighlight all of it because he can't do it.
So I'll unhighlight a couple of things. Let me see if I can find where. Oh yeah. So it's the combination of the
Timeless way.
This what stands out point, and then this timeless way. Yeah. So I think it feels like this is very much of the times, but it's not a book that will age poorly. I don't know. Maybe the best example of what I'm getting at with this strength point is just like when mom just visited. She brought a book, and I picked it up briefly from off her nightstand in the hotel room where she was staying, and opened to a random page, and two characters were talking to each other in the book via WhatsApp messages. That is not a book that's going to be timeless because it mentions WhatsApp, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't mean that it's a bad book, but it does mean that in 10 years, if you read that book, it's going to feel really dated. And nothing about Demon Copperhead will become dated, I think.
Yeah. That's an
we didn't have any of those.
interesting thought process. Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, something that stands out to me, I don't, you have another point here that this maybe is slightly different, so I don't know if you want to expound on this one that you unhighlighted, or if otherwise I can take it, kind of do a little spin off of that point, because I agree. I think the quality of the writing is just really high, which, I mean, Barbara Kingsolver has written like a number of, she's a very seasoned author, written a number of very successful books. This book won the Pulitzer Prize. It's like, obviously, I knew going in that it was going to be high quality writing. So in some ways that almost didn't stand out, like reputation wise, even though it was really high quality. But I think for me, part of what sort of goes like the Venn diagram overlap of what I'm going to say is really there with that is like, maybe part of what makes it timeless is just that it's like, she gives Demon, the narrator, like an incredible, like she really gives this voice that you feel like you're in their head. Like you feel like you are Demon when you're like going through these things. Like you're like, yeah, I would have made that choice. I understand. Like, okay, this makes sense for like lots of the book. Maybe not literally 100%, and I'll bring that up later, but especially for the first like half of the book, I feel like
the part
I felt very connected to Demon.
If the first half of the book, if I wonder if we have the same, I don't know how close it actually is to half of the book, but I would, in my mind, the first half of the book, or the halfway point more or less, is when Demon flees and finds his grandmother. Is that who it is? Who's
yes,
the
it's
woman
his dad's mom. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, like when he gets put up with the football coach, I feel like that's approximately the halfway point, and that's where there's a big narrative change, a big tone change.
I agree. Yeah, and that was definitely a little bit of a downswing for me. I really enjoyed the first half of the book more than the second half.
Okay, I'm the same way. Yeah, that's in my first my first weakness that I'll unhighlight is just his football arc. Like, I thought it was so unnecessary and detracts from the book's overall societal impact a little bit. Like, why did he have to be this football stud as a freshman? I don't mind using football as a plot device for him getting injured and then that being his gateway into drugs, right? The painkillers. Although I think that the book probably could have had a little bit more of an impact if they found some, or if Barbara Kingsolver found some non-prescription drug way of onboarding Demon to drugs. Plenty of other characters in the book got into drugs without needing to be prescribed them, and I think that's the bigger issue is like, I mean, if the opioid crisis is maybe the biggest issue that this book is trying to display to all of its readers, then a large portion of the population who get addicted to opioids are not getting addicted to them because they are prescribed them initially. And I think it's a very legitimate question. Like, Demon's best friend, Megan, right? We don't really ever know what's going on in his head. He's a very interesting character who clearly has just gotten addicted to all kinds of drugs that ruin his life, more or less. And we don't know why. And that's a very interesting question, right? He's just a kid who gets addicted to opioids because. And so
He was
like
an interesting character in the beginning. It seems like he's so like, well, he is so close with Demon, and then they just drift apart, and like they keep doing stuff together, but you feel like you are always wanting his life to turn around and like wanting to understand him better because he's like that like
or
oldest,
always
my oldest closest
yeah,
friend.
always wanting to like more interactions that are just between Demon and Maggot. Like, dude, he's like your
Yeah.
oldest closest friend. Just talk to him.
Right.
And like, if you're not gonna just talk to him, like, well, if you are gonna talk to him about anything meaningful, then that would make its way into this book.
Mm-hmm.
And so, since it's not in this book, I guess it's not happening. But like, that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. You know, I was going to bring this up eventually. I wasn't sure how long I'd wait to bring it up, and maybe you were planning to bring it up too. But I'm sure you know this book is like David Copperfield. You know, she like revamped
Yeah,
David Copper. Have you read David Copperfield, or do you know the plot of that
I don't. I
Dickens
haven't
book?
read it, and I don't know the plot.
Okay, at some point when I was pretty deep into the book, I was like, I just need to read like a plot summary. This is mostly my own petty, just like the trend book reimagining.
Yeah. So
This was
sorry.
so,
Relevant.
but this book is so strong. I think I would have been better off not leaning into the David Copperfield. Well, okay, maybe this will make you think less of the book, or maybe more. I actually think, I don't know. It's something interesting. I don't. For me, it's not a strength or a weakness. But I at one point was like, I just need to know, like, is he just gonna like die? Is this gonna be like a pre-suicide or pre-OD journal or something? Like, I don't. I was trying to just like be insulated for like if it just ended up being fully depressing, because it is depressing most of the book. You're just kind of It's definitely a book that is a series of unfortunate events with like the caveat of a random like year where he gets good at football and is then it's another unfortunate event, which is it's like, okay, now finally I'm like no longer Team Demon for a little while because he's being kind of a douche. You know, like even though like things in his life are going well, which is what I wanted for him. So it does that thing that's annoying where like once things finally get good for him, you're annoyed by him. But I read the plot summary of David Copperfield, and it's like the exact same plot. It's not like, and all the characters, which is in some ways just absurd, and in some ways it's impressive that like it doesn't feel like a manufactured. I mean, it's like completely different setting and completely different, or in many different social issues. Although like Boys' Homes was like one of the. I haven't read David Copperfield, so I'm speaking of it very unintelligibly here, but just from reading the Wikipedia and plot summaries and stuff like that. But like he Charles Dickens was like I think he like spent time in the like a boys' home and stuff like that was an issue that made its way into multiple of his books, like Oliver Twist and stuff like that too. So that overlaps certainly with the like orphans and foster care being a predominant theme, but like all the character names are basically the same as well, which is hilarious. They're all different spins. It's like, let me just look up some of them really quick. It's because it's honestly so entertaining. I started reading the plot summary and then I just didn't want to stop because I wanted to see what names she devised for all the people. It's like blah blah blah. So it's the Pagadi family is like who raises him instead of the Peggotts. And then David's mom marries Edward Murdstone instead of Stoner.
Oh my gosh.
And then it's like Emily is like the niece of like that's basically Emmy in the book, who he like falls in love with for a temporary period of time. His mother gets married. The stepfather is stern, harsh, and abusive. Same thing there. I'm not gonna do this for too long, but I'll just do a few more. So then like there was Tommy Traddles is another one of the. So he goes to a instead of a farm, he goes to a boarding school where the headmaster's named Mr. Creakle instead of the like Creaky's farm. And then Tommy Traddles is one of the boys instead of Tommy Waddles or whatever. And then James Steerforth instead of Sterling Ford, like fast forward or whatever. And then he thinks Steerforth is the coolest one ever, and he wants to be like him. Yeah. Anyways, you get the picture. If you read through, Uriah Heep is U-Haul. Agnes is like the person he falls in love with and eventually ends up
Yep.
with instead of Angus. It's like actually the same name. So
Oh,
it's just
wow.
pretty hilarious. They kept like all the names Dora instead of
Wow.
Dory, and like the plot is as close to identical as you could get with how sprawling of an actual like story it is and how big the character web is, you know, and it's obviously. So yeah, I don't know, that like that's kind of an interesting, somewhat of a strength that she made that plot so like if I didn't know that, I never would have guessed this was like a plot that was basically transposed into a different setting and slightly different social issues and a different main character.
Yeah, it
So
would be interesting. I assume I will eventually read David Copperfield and would have even if I hadn't read this, and I wonder like if I would have noticed that if the connection wasn't explicitly made. Also, just relevant since I also mentioned earlier that I had just read the Cider House Rules as the book directly after this. And purely coincidentally, the Cider House Rules is about an orphanage and features the main character Homer Wells and who's an orphan who grows up in this orphanage. And every night before bed to the other boys in the orphanage, he reads some number of chapters to them from David Copperfield.
Wow. Jeez, the crossovers.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think for me, you know, some of the strengths that I'll just list out really quick that we were already talking around a little bit. Like I think the narration slash narration and just character of Demon. It's like really really strong for. I would say the narration portion, like the fact that he has his own voice and way of talking, and you really get to know it. That's strong throughout. I think the character is like you're like in love with the character for the first half, and then I think like you become less in love with him with the football arc, and then he gets addicted to drugs, which you feel bad about, but obviously makes you like, at least for me as a reader, like less connected, which in a lot of ways makes sense. Like, oh, you're narrating the story about yourself like in a drug haze. Like obviously I can't connect with that in the same way that I can with like a young kid struggling with the huge issues that you're struggling with. So I think the like that's a huge strength for me is just that character. Like I think if she missed the mark on like the character being so like rooting for them so hard and feeling so authentic and like how a real person would struggle like with it, then the book would have been much less impactful and it would have been a lot harder to stick through it all. So those are a couple of strengths I want to call out, and then also I had another one that I was gonna say. Now that we're talking about like all the character names, the web of characters, which you know we're getting into minutia here. Well, I am in my brain of like what is the strength of Demon Copperhead versus David Copperfield a little bit, but I find the web of characters like really enjoyable. Just it feels like a very like this is like the web of a cast of characters of like a real person's life, as opposed to like books where you read and you're like, there's like 5 people in this person's life, you know, or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, they like, especially with the whole foster care situation, there's like all these, you know, people he meets, and some of them recur later in life, others don't, but they all like leave an impression on him and his memory, which I feel like is true of like growing up too, like those. How many times he references like the place where that one social worker took me or whatever, you know, or like Creaky's farm. Like it's obvious those places that were like part of his upbringing growing up that he struggled with were still like just embedded in his psyche and in ways that were unavoidable.
On that note, I just revealed a point in my what stands out. I couldn't remember.
Oh, okay. I'll scroll up there.
What stands out their strength. Yeah, just basically exactly what you just said. The cast of well-developed, multi-dimensional characters is huge in this book, and most of them are present for more than just like one significant portion of the story. There's not many characters that you only see in one and like get to know in one sort of era of his life. I would say the only one that really comes to mind, well, perhaps 2, but one of them is obvious. His mom doesn't really recur.
Right.
But Stoner, I kind of thought Stoner was going to come back around at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I like really thought. I was kind of waiting for him to show back up. not necessarily in a major way, but like just some chapter that's just like, oh, and then he bumps into Stoner when he's a you know, young adult,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
but he never did.
I think I expected this because he like almost was around when he was working that job at the like convenience store where they would like drain that battery acid and make drugs or something with it. It was like one of
Mhm.
Stoner's friends, and I did have a period where I was like, I wonder if Stoner will be back, but then he like never really was.
Yeah, but um, almost every character is developed enough to just be like actually interesting and feel real, and not just
Yeah.
like a plot device or something. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, they aren't.
they're
They're
real people.
largely pretty dynamic. Like they're not
Hmm.
all just predictable. Like this character always behaves this way. This character always behaves this way. Like they
Hmm.
swing with Demon, like kind of swinging back and forth across things too. I mean, you have your characters that
Yeah.
are like a little more static, like fast forward. You know, like there's some like that, but there's others that
Hmm.
like the
Yep.
large majority like that he's kind of growing up with and stuff. You see a lot of sides of him, and you see the relationships change a lot.
Yeah. I was gonna say normally, um, the most boring characters I think in a lot of stories like this are just romantic interests, and then say that this book did a good job of avoiding having one-dimensional romantic interests, since Emmy is an early romantic
Mm-hmm.
interest who doesn't just become the like
Yeah.
you know, faceless girl, and then Angus is the same way. But I do think Dory is kind of a bit of a lackluster character.
I think she is, but she's
Um,
also to like go back to the thing you said earlier. I think she's like a pretty sad. It adds to the like backdrop of sad and in many degrees understandable like descents into drug addiction and just not having
mhm,
a way out. Because like her, like I don't know. When I thought about her life, there was the point where she like died, and I was kind of like, you were like at that point frustrated by her as a character because like she's not moving
mhm.
in the right direction and Demon's trying to help, doing what he can to help, but he's also not in a good situation, so you're just kind of like sad and wish she could pull her weight a little bit, you know, that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
when I was thinking about her life, I'm like, this is just the most depressing life. Like she's basically normal, but then her dad gets sick and she has to just like do a version of full-time caretaking for like him and the property alongside some like some actual healthcare professionals, but like has to quit going to school, loses her whole social network,
Yeah,
then like meets Demon and gets like a breath of life into her, but then like her dad passes and Demon like becomes dependent on painkillers when she's in a really vulnerable like period of life too,
yeah,
where it's just like a yeah, just like bad thing after bad thing, and then gets
yeah,
addicted to drugs,
yeah,
but has literally only Demon in her life at that point to like, and he's
yeah.
also a drug addict. It's that like basically does a version of like trying to get her better, but also enabling simultaneously.
Hmm.
Yeah, just it's depressing.
Yeah,
So I like I don't know to me because she's like not on like when you're introduced to her. Maybe this was like naive of me, and I think I just don't do a lot of predictions when I like thinking ahead when I'm reading. I'm always along for the ride. Like I did not know that was going to be the way that her story went for the first chunk of the relationship with Demon. Like that was
yeah.
not like
I mean,
immediately evident to me. To me, she was much more of like, oh, she's like clearly sociable, well liked when she's like around the other people that were her age. Like Demon's in love with her or whatever. Obviously, yeah. I don't know. I
yeah,
just I didn't know where it was gonna go with her. I didn't know if they were just gonna like break up eventually or what. So
right.
in that
And I
sense, like
mean,
me, I don't know that you could call her truly dynamic, but like it wasn't. She wasn't just like a oh this character clearly is only gonna do this one thing.
no, that's true.
For me as a reader at least.
Maybe maybe I'm misremembering, but I think what frustrated me the most with her is that it was like like one of the first times, or like the first time that she and Demon really went out like just together with nobody else
Mm-hmm.
around. I think I'm like, and then they went back to her dad's place, and she just already was basically doing like drugs from like her dad's stash.
Yeah, yeah. I think she was
And like
doing some.
maybe if there was a
Yeah.
little bit of a pause before that, where it was just like, oh, she's actually just taking care of him the right way and hasn't already gotten into drugs. And if it was more like, I don't, maybe if we got to see that side of her first, then maybe I would find her slightly
Yeah,
more interesting.
that's fair. I mean,
Perhaps.
it definitely, yeah. I don't remember exactly when it becomes obvious she's an addict, and I think that's also begging like a blurry line, right? Like not like there's many characters who do a lot of drugs but aren't like totally overboard addicted.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
it's
I
like,
think that's one of the points of the book too,
yep,
is to just blur that, is to definitely blur that line, uh, make it the reader question if if they are addicted to anything that they shouldn't be, just
right,
by making it a very, very, very hazy line. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, how do you even like? When is this drug use, whatever drug it is, still serving a cause versus just being a
mm-hmm.
drug addiction?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well, I have a random weakness I can jump to just because it's one of the things I know I want
Okay.
to call out, which is just, and it's one of the things in my what stands out too because it's almost like a double-edged sword in my opinion. I think this is a type of thing that I've read enough books, a lot less than you, but enough to where I've seen this type of plot done before. And again, this is
Mm-hmm.
like one of those weird ones, like I said, with such a good cast of characters. It's like I don't know if I'm holding something against Barbara here that was actually a David Copperfield thing, but whatever. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
critiquing the book. I'm not trying to overthink that. I just want to give
Yeah.
that caveat because it's kind of funny and interesting. But like the plot for me, I think I've read multiple books with this like series of unfortunate events vibe plot line where it's basically just
Mm-hmm.
a bad thing happens and then another bad thing happens and then another tough thing happens and then guess what? Another bad thing happens. I'll
Mm-hmm.
sprinkle in like one decent thing, and then guess what? Another bad thing happens, and it just gets old for me. Like I don't need relentless. I think there's like an extent to which relentless like negativity and not that's like not quite the right word. Just relentless like let's just keep showing like how tough this character has it and making it worse for them and seeing how they deal with it. Like that
Mm-hmm.
just gets old for me. And that probably plays into why I thought like the first half of the book was really good, and then it just became like this is just a lot of like tough things keep happening. He seems to kind of address one curveball and then is hit by the next immediately. So and
Mm-hmm.
like you could say that's broken up by the football arc, but then because it is technically kind of in some ways, but like I think I mean you didn't like the football arc either. Like the thing I struggle with the football arc is it's like the bad version of giving the character a break, where it's like oh he kind of has like a couple of years where he's actually his life's objectively quite good, and he just
Mm-hmm.
his sort of his like inner compass and how you feel aligned to it as a reader just goes way off kilter, and you're like you no longer like him as much or respect him as much.
Mm-hmm.
He like a lot of the like character, using that the other term of character, like a lot of his like underlying principles
Mm-hmm.
feel compromised in ways where you're no longer like rooting for him in the same way. So it's like, well, now you just lost one of the strengths from the first half, which is that like I'm really on Team Demon. I really understand his decision making. I really like sympathize with the things he's going through, and I'm like constantly rooting for him to get out
Yeah.
of it. And then it's like, well, he's finally out of it, and I'm no longer rooting for him. Like I just kind of it just feels bad. Like that's just
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I think I've
No, that I.
it's a tough like tightrope to walk to like do this thing where you make a character an underdog and really show how hard they have it, but then like don't overdo that, but also don't. Yeah, I don't know. I just for me it was just I felt like the series of unfortunate events thing got tired for me, and Demon became less likable like in the back half of the book, and that those were both problems for my overall enjoyment of the
Mhm.
book.
Yeah, I think um, in a similar note, or expanding on that, maybe it's not just the football arc bothered me so much. It did bother me, like why he had to be this like god tier football player.
I don't. I will
Uh,
say I don't. I did not interpret him that he was a god tier football player. I interpreted it as like he was a good tight end on the varsity team as like freshman, early
as a
sophomore.
freshman, right?
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
like that.
so
And a tight end is like not the most important position. Like he was like a relevant
yeah,
player on the team as a freshman, and he was supposed to be like really big, right? That was like just genetics, I think.
yeah, yeah.
So,
But
so minor thing
um,
there, but I just wanted to
they
interject it.
also made him like he's supposed to be a portrayal of a disadvantaged youth, and he's got these physical attributes that make him a very good starting football player as a freshman on the varsity team.
Mm-hmm.
And his English teacher is telling him he should be gifted and talented, and his art teacher thinks he's like an awesome artist.
Yeah. So,
And the only thing he really pursues out of that is football, despite being surrounded by, well, I shouldn't say surrounded by, but despite the fact that when he gets in that position, he's like when he starts to realize that he actually has these gifts, he's got a good teacher, a good school counselor, and Agnes, who is just this constant, strong voice of encouragement towards good decisions on his side. And then he just gets into football. But it's like most people don't have any of those gifts.
mm-hmm.
And why does he have all of them?
Yeah,
And
that's a fair point. Why does he have? Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting call out. I mean, I think I would say like first of all, the gifted thing is probably like relative to his peers, which could
yeah.
with like I don't recall him specifically being like gifted in English. Maybe just like
No,
better than.
his teacher tells him that he should be in the gifted and talented, but he declines.
Mm,
So it's a
okay.
it's like a one paragraph where it's brought up.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, and then
kind
he
of like
does do
Mr.
the art
Armstrong.
thing. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah, he takes a
that's an
couple years of
interesting.
art classes, and then
Mm,
he gets out of it when he gets addicted to opioids.
mm-hmm.
But then he does the cartoon drawing
Yeah,
later
the
on,
yep the comic
which I
strip.
can't for the life of me remember the name of that superhero. It's just
Redneck.
like red,
Red
just
red
redneck.
space neck. He wears like a red bandana around his neck. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I was thinking it was redneck something, but yeah. Then
Yeah.
there's characters like Maggot, who you're just like, I mean, I know we've already talked about Maggot, but I just think I want a whole book about Maggot.
Mm, yeah, he's
Um,
his character. You keep just like bumping into him, and more crazy stuff has unfolded in his life, and you don't understand it, and then rinse and repeat.
Yep. That's kind of the next weakness I'll reveal is somewhat related to that. It's like borderline just me using the same point as a strength and weakness about
Mm,
the
yeah,
insanely good cast of characters, but I feel like for the size of this book, like it's a substantial book, but to be honest, I'm extraordinarily impressed that it could make so many interesting characters in as short of a book as it is. Um, but having done like I think that's a very impressive thing that Barbara already did. But having done that just makes me want more from a lot of these characters, as opposed to like if some of them had been one dimensional, I
sure.
wouldn't have cared so
Yeah,
much to get more information about them.
that's a good point.
So like
Yeah.
it's it's I hate saying that that's a weakness, but it's something that left me wanting more, I suppose,
Yeah.
just from the book.
Yeah, like there could be a spin-off book about one of these characters and tell just as interesting of a story.
Yep.
Except she doesn't have the David Copperfield blueprint for it, so
Yeah, yeah. And
have to get
with
it
that,
approved
if we
by
can get
Charles
into one of the
Dickens.
predictions,
Oh yeah.
uh, the something I will like more than David. I
Uh-huh.
don't know that this is. I only picked this because I liked this character a ton, but
Oh,
so
well,
I don't
yeah.
have any reason to think that you would not have liked this character necessarily, but just
I'm
I
very
would be.
curious.
It's a very minor character. I wanted more about
Oh, swap out.
Swap Out.
Interesting. Yeah, he gets mentioned a few times. He keeps coming back. It's like a random, like, then he's here. You're like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, well, because if I remember correctly, that was at like the Creaky Farm. There were
Yep.
4 people: Demon, Fast Forward, Tommy, and Swap Out.
Yep.
And you get a lot of Fast Forward and a lot of Tommy, and obviously a lot of Demon. And then Swap Out's just like this.
Yeah, and swap out I don't think is from David Copperfield, or at least he's minor enough to where he's not mentioned in the plot summary. Just wanted to let you know.
Yeah.
So he could be a genuine addition by Kingsolver. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really feel like he served too much purpose other than at Creaky Farm, primarily just being another another pawn
Yeah.
in
And their warm
the
body.
fast forward sort of game. Yeah, but like, yeah, I thought he was very underdeveloped, and I don't know why we should have gotten so little swap out when we got so much of Tommy or vice versa. Like
Mm-hmm.
it felt a little mean to just make swap out be
Just
the odd
fade
one
into the
out from that
background.
creaky
Yeah.
farm. Yeah, like we probably by the end we've got more green time, so to speak, of that stupid offensive lineman than
Yeah.
we got
True.
of swap out. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't care about that offensive lineman.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. That's a funny one. Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I think you were more intrigued by swap out than me. Although I was intrigued, I did think specifically to like, oh yeah, we got like I didn't know fast forward or Tommy would come back later,
Right, both of those were a
and then
surprise and
they
a
they
pleasant
do, and then
surprise.
become big parts of the story later on. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you are kind of like, wait, but what about swap out now? It just never comes back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I found it easy to map characters from this book to archetypes of high schoolers from Midland, to be honest.
Yeah. Probably some of
And
that is pretty ubiquitous across.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, in that regard, I also think something about Fast Forward, an extended story about Fast Forward would be interesting, even though he dies. Spoiler alert to our listeners if you haven't
Oh
read
yeah.
the book.
We've spoiled a lot, so
Yeah, I
I don't
suppose
think you
so.
should listen to a book review that's
Yeah,
intended to be long form, two people talking for over an hour and not get most of it spoiled.
yeah, yeah. Um, just in that regard, what I was really thinking, I revealed this way early on, but my standout point of like the brutal and depressing ways that people's lives go in this part of the
Mhm.
country, I think maybe the most standout scene of this whole book is when, at least to me, is when what's his name,
Mhm.
Hammer and Fast Forward both die or whatever. Like,
Interesting. Stand out in what way? Just memorable or?
just like, yeah, it just has me being like, oh my god, what a nightmare.
Yeah. See, that's funny.
Absolute
For me, that
nightmare.
might have been the point that I just felt. That was like the series of unfortunate events point where I was just like, really? They're just all gonna die. Okay. Because of a
Mhm.
rainstorm. Like, like they all die in David Copperfield too. So it's like, again, I don't know who to like fault for that, whether
Yeah.
it's Dickens or Kingsolver. But for me, that was like one of those, just like this is gonna happen, really. And I felt like that because that's yeah, it's hard to like put. I don't know if I'm gonna add much more because it's hard to like know what I specifically want to put in bullet points. But this kind of just ties
Mhm.
into like my critique of the plot, feeling like it's not a bad plot. It's just not. It's just imperfect, and it has things that like got old. Like the series of unfortunate events thing got old, and I thought for Demon's character arc, like basically the whole event of Hammer and Fast Forward dying is essentially his breaking point, right? It's like after that he
Mhm.
ends up agreeing, after kind of like having an internal struggle, to go to rehab, and then he
Yeah.
gets clean. And I'm kind of like, why was that the thing and not like Dory dying? I don't know. I just it to me it would like it
Mhm.
felt almost like a random plot event to me. So it's like very fascinating that was like the most impactful thing for you. Because to me
Well,
that
yeah, I don't
happening, I
know
was
if
just
it's
kind
the
of like,
most
but
impactful.
why? That was like how I felt after that happened. I was just like, why are these two people dying here? Why did any of this happen? It's all
Mhm.
just, which maybe that's the point, is it's just like senseless bad decisions made by
Yeah.
people who are under the influence of drugs, because they were, and
Yep.
like they were just all idiots, and then like Demon was compromised by his knee, so he couldn't really intervene in any meaningful way, and all that. So maybe that was part of the point. For me, yeah, it just left me being just like, why is this happening?
Mhm. No, I get that for sure. I think that scene also, like, the greater context of my recent book reading, like that scene is very similar to a scene that happened in that book that when we talked the other month, I said I read and really hated The Secret History.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's a scene in the Secret History where I would say spoiler alert, but it's also like one of the first things that kind of happens in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But the main character falls off of like a slippery waterfall while like hiking and just dies on the rocks.
Wow.
And I hated that book, and I did like this book, and so now that this scene has sort of replaced that from the Secret History, which is good.
Yeah, okay. That is good. One more thing while I'm thinking plot here that I want to call out, because it's like just a thing I feel, and I don't know, maybe this is one of the things that is sort of a version of a prediction down here that I'll get to later. It's just I just like she tells so much of the story of like the trials and tribulations of his childhood, and then the devastation of the drug addiction, and then it's like, anyways, here's like 10 pages of me getting clean, going to rehab, and then falling in love with the person who's like the best life partner I actually could have, and actually you'll literally get like 2 sentences of post realization that Agnes is in love with me and I'm in love with her, and then the book's just done. Like, okay, we're not gonna get to enjoy any of that. Like, I would like to have had a little more of that. Like, that sounds fun. Like, I like Demon's character and narration. I want to know like a little bit of what they do, like a little bit more of the rehab stuff. Like, give me some victories to like dwell on and get to see through his eyes, and then give me like a little bit of like, you get the Dory romance and you get the fun of that, but it's like with a character that you're never that invested in. Yeah, and you're like, you as much as I said that she's like feels like a blank slate character, or did to me when I first met her. There's never really like a step in a good direction with her. Like, it's all the steps like go in the wrong direction. It's just not like immediately obvious that that's what's going to happen. Whereas with Agnes, you're like, I should change it to Angus, I guess. Angus.
Her name is Agnes.
Yeah, it is.
In
yeah,
the book,
it's just, it just goes by
but they tell
Angus.
her Angus,
Yeah.
which I don't know if I think I already somewhere said this, but I loved the nicknames.
Oh yeah, the nicknames were fun. Yeah, the character names were just really fun, and it made it even more fun to see like how she twisted the character names from Dickens, from David Copperfield. Like that was pretty fun because none of them felt like overdone or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did have that here. Great use of nicknames all throughout the book.
Yeah.
And the strengths.
Like, none of them felt manufactured from. Like, they all felt like fun versions of like character names that could have been real, which is, yeah, like I said, kind of impressive in that she didn't get to just make them up out of thin air. Well, she could have theoretically, but she chose not to and chose to use basically portions of all the other
maggot nickname is actually pretty incredible. Yeah. I thought that was very well manufactured with intent of Demon being like, well, I think since he's kind of queer,
yeah,
he'll definitely just be called faggot unless I give him a better nickname.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so I suspected. Let's see. I'll reveal some of my prediction. I'm trying to think if I have anything else really big to hit on. I didn't really talk too much about the themes. I definitely agree with you. I think I just frankly think you said it better than I could have and more succinctly, and I don't know that I have more to add that's meaningful to add, but I think like the focus on social issues and sort of an impoverished region of the country and impoverished groups is definitely relevant today and important to see things through the eye. I just think generally, like, whether it's reading as one way to do this, but also just like talking with people, like actually having relationships with people that are different than you in life, I think it's like important to have awareness and connection with people whose experiences in life are different than your own, to have a just like sort of richer loam of the human experience through which you view your own life and the impact your decisions have on others and things like that. So I think this is sort of definitely like the social groups and social issues within this book are relatively unique to me as a reader, but I know they're like they're like the issues of addiction, issues of like those regions being impoverished and things like that. You know, I think it's not like that novel of an area of focus in this day and age, so I don't necessarily give it
Yeah.
tons of points for that specifically, other than the fact that it was like done well. But it's like overlaps with like Hillbilly Elegy, right? I mean, it's like
in that regard, I'll reveal my last strength, which is that.
Did you read Hillbilly Elegy?
No, I read the first paragraph, and tell me if you agree with this. The first paragraph, basically, J.D. Vance says, like,
I didn't read it, so
succinctly, he says, "There's no reason for you to be interested in the story that I have to tell." That's like the first sentence of the book, and
all right.
I just figured, okay, I either like read this trusting in the author, in which case I'm done, or I think that he's full of shit, in which case I'm not going to trust any of the rest of the book either. So I don't see it. I just felt like to me, I was like, I don't know how I can even proceed after that. But,
one sentence, just detonate the book. That's hilarious. It's such
I literally couldn't
errant train of thought that. I mean, I just think J.D. Vance is whole person, and not to get overly political, but he's just the fakest person of all time at this point. So
yeah,
I can't imagine consuming a book he wrote. Like I would just.
Mm-hmm. He went to Yale. He's from money. I think since we have now gotten to that point at least, and covered all of how like the social issues here, and I actually find it really interesting and insightful what you've told me about how similar this book is to David Copperfield. None of that would change my rating, but it does make me think of the book slightly higher, actually, because my feeling for what this book really is Barbara Kingsolver, who's from Appalachia herself, I believe.
Okay, I did not know that.
Just wanting to do a better job than the rest of the conversation has done in the recent past about elucidating these issues. And I think she did that really well.
Yeah, I would agree.
So
with that.
it's not. I don't think of this as like. I don't think that there's. It's a very different kind of book from what I normally read. Because the books I try to read, I don't necessarily think of as typically being about social issues at the time. I like to read books that make me feel like I understand myself better. And this, I am much more like I understand a certain other group of people better, but not myself.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I think that the book feels like it was written out of necessity, where to me, like the author was very compelled to write a story.
That makes me just wonder if she read Hillbilly Elegy and was just like, no, fuck that. I gotta do this.
Because Hillbilly Elegy is not that old of a book, right?
Yeah. I mean, it came out pre-Trump, pre-2016 Trump, right? It was considered like
shortly before then. Yep. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some of that where she was just like, Hillbilly Elegy doesn't do my people justice.
Okay, it came out in 2016. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm adding what's that?
Dramedy for Hillbilly Elegy?
Yeah, I can't believe it's a drama comedy. I didn't expect to see that. I was looking for stuff about the book, but obviously stuff came up about the movie too.
Yeah.
I feel like I needed to add another bullet point in my strengths because like the current, I don't know if I spelled Appalachia right. I probably didn't, but
no, I think you're good.
Oh, okay, but I shouldn't have more weaknesses than strength bullet points. Because overall, this was a good book. All right, let me do my predictions now, because I feel like I'm trying to think if I talked a little bit about themes. I talked about characters, talked about plot, talked about setting, talked about just writing in general, like mostly in the context of the narration and how much you feel like Demon is a fully believable, real human by how it is pretty incredible. Like I think now that I'm a little older, this would have never been something I thought about, like maybe even like 5 years ago or something. But like the fact that she chose a male character, like she's not in fact a male. You definitely
Mhm.
feel like you're in the head of a boy, then adolescent, young man,
Yeah,
then a man, which
that's
is just
true. Yeah.
impressive. It's just like, wow, how do you?
Yep.
I wonder how she got there with her ability to do that.
She's like a reverse Wally Lamb.
Oh, interesting.
Wally Lamb. I feel like if you look at any of his book, like if you go to like Goodreads and you look at like reviews for She's Come Undone or something like that,
Hmm.
since he has books that are first person through a female
Hmm.
protagonist, you'll see all sorts of reviews where people say Wally Lamb writes more like a woman than any other woman.
That's funny.
But anyway,
Yeah, I feel like I hit most of what I wanted to. Let me make sure we talked about all your stuff. I think we did. All your bullet points.
well, I have this, but I have a feeling. Oh
Oh,
gosh,
wait, where is
I
it?
didn't want to highlight that much.
Oh,
One
okay.
more bullet point. I have a feeling that this is
Oh,
what
yeah.
you're getting at with one of your predictions, so I'll
I knew
just
you were. I
reveal
knew
it.
I was gonna like the happy ending more than you were, because I was like, Aaron never likes happy endings.
Yeah, it just there's a way that this happy ending could have worked. Him being with Agnes at the end,
Hmm.
um, that involves him just realizing much earlier on that Agnes is actually good for him. I feel like you could just cut the book when he goes to rehab. Cut it there and get nothing of like post rehab him or anything.
Hmm.
Um, and that would be slightly more impactful and still a happy ending.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
see why
like
Agnes
strongly.
likes him by the end.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that he like brought her family to life when her family was
Yeah,
just a alcoholic father and weird
yeah,
creep guy who wanted to
yeah.
basically molest her and whatever. I don't know.
Mhm.
Brought some tradition. I think she like sees who he was before, and like he always has that thread in him, even as you as the narrator going through it with him. Like there's very clearly like a thread to his morality and principles
Mhm.
and work ethic and in like sense of industry and his personality that like perseveres just even through the drug addiction. And I would say that's probably what
Mhm.
she's connected to.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think the book like I don't think it's essential that it had like a romantic ending. Like your point about it could have ended with maybe like the rehab stuff. I don't like disagree with that. I think I wanted like more good stuff to happen in the book basically to balance out the series of unfortunate events vibes.
Mhm.
So I would have liked whether that was like show me some of what he gets to do with Angus or
Mhm.
show me more of the rehab journey and like make me feel more of those victories or some mix of the two. Wouldn't have mattered
Yeah,
to me
actually.
much, but I would have liked that. That
Mhm.
would have just balanced it out. And like I don't disagree with your point that like sometimes the impact is significantly more profound if like the ending is tragic in some way. But this type of
Mhm.
book for like this book for me would not have benefited by that. Like if for example this was like a journal like that predated an OD or something, and then he died. It just like the whole
Mhm.
book was already a series of unfortunate events. Like you're already getting beat down.
Yeah.
For me personally, as a reader, which obviously different people have different preferences, but that's my standpoint with the way it went. So I like that it gave you something at the end to just feel like again that like thread of demon that was who you loved in him like persevered and came
Mhm.
out on top. But you got like
Yeah.
10 pages of it or whatever.
No, I actually think you make a good point, and I'm I think now that we're talking about this and I'm thinking about it just slightly more deeply, that maybe what actually would have been a more impactful ending is to just show more. It could have even been like 50 to 100 pages more of the process of him getting better instead of him just kind of
Yeah, just like fast
magically
forwards.
getting
Yeah.
better. Like, make it humanize that process for the
Yeah.
people who read this book and relate and are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Make it seem like, oh, there is a path forward that's not just this magical blink and you're cured and now suddenly you're in a happy relationship sort of thing. But like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I echo that for sure. And I think I don't know. Obviously, I'm just guessing. Like if maybe that's off script of David Copperfield. Maybe
mhm.
that's just a harder plot to do after all the drama and intensity. Like where do you build that same level of tension when the rehab is like cutting the ties with all the other characters in the book? There would have been difficult challenges in doing that, I think, but I share your opinion there.
Yeah.
Like I wanted more of that. Like I was disappointed that like when it got to him going to rehab, I was like saw how many pages were left in the book, you know. And I was
Mhm.
like, really? Okay, we're doing this now. We're not gonna get any of the
Mhm.
payoff, basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the way the ending was executed, I liked that it at least gave you like a hopeful like ending note instead of just all the tough stuff you've been dealing with pretty much the entirety of the book. But I didn't think it was particularly well executed, and it left me
Yeah.
wanting more and feeling like disappointed in a way. Not so for me, it's like my disappointment wasn't like with what happened. It was like I want to know more of how that happened, and like maybe go a little further too.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that actually maybe that would have been also satisfactory for me if there was just more. I guess it just felt so fast and that made it feel fake.
yeah. I mean, I think that's a very
If you
valid.
have
Yeah,
this lifelong, like this kid whose like whole life has been a shit show and has culminated in what amounts to like years of opioid dependency, right? And then it's just like, and it's done.
yeah,
He's good. Uh,
yep,
um,
yeah. So I did
I feel
predict I would
like,
like the ending more than you.
yeah,
Which
that's a good prediction. Well, I predicted that you would have more to say about, if I can highlight this
quality of
correctly,
the writing, perhaps. Yeah, I
the
probably did.
quality of
I feel
writing.
like I said more that I liked the like
Mm.
narration and the voice of the character more so than you did.
Yeah.
So I think you were large, like you were at least half right, if not more than that.
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of touched on this before. Part of the reason that this might be my sentiment that I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about the quality of writing, but what I say here is like there was no standout-ish points to me. But that might be because of the fast-paced audiobook accompaniment that
Mm.
I had. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Um,
you just keep moving and moving.
yeah,
It
yeah.
also kind of. I'm not saying this is the reason. I'm just like, well, I think this maybe was a barrier to me. Like there were parts of there were like analogies where I was like, huh, yeah, I would have said something like that, or I get that. But like he was
Mhm.
such like a like down to earth using very like dumbed down to he wasn't like his narration wasn't going to lend itself to like wow he put that in the most profound way. Like it tended to hit
Yep.
the things that hit harder, like there were, and that doesn't mean there weren't things that like hit hard that were truths of life that he revealed in a way that was like
Mhm.
still true to his voice and character. I just think that his upbringing, his education, etc., didn't lend itself to particularly, like beautiful or profound prose. Like you had to be kind of really looking for those moments, I think, if you wanted to find them. And
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know that there
And
were like
certainly
bountiful examples. So
yeah, no, I mean that's a perfectly reasonable point. And yeah, I mean to your point about just how good his voice was. I mean, the two other books I have now read with accompanying audiobook after this one did not engross me as much as this. Like this book, when I was listening to it with the audiobook narrator and reading along, it was like disorienting to stop. It was like, oh yeah, this is the real world. It's like,
yeah, that
uh,
makes sense to me. Get really in his head.
mhm.
Yeah. Okay, I predicted you would just basically like the overall plot more than me, which I don't know that I was fully right about that. I think we both actually had pretty overlapping gripes with the plot. Not
Yeah.
exactly overlapping, but I don't think I don't think you would have said the plot was a strength necessarily, or you called out the football arc as a weakness, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was more specifically dissatisfied with like the overall arc of the entire book, but
Hmm.
I don't know. That was a bit of a
Yeah.
guess. I didn't know.
I'm generally not very plot oriented,
I don't know that I
but
am
like
either. I mean, I
yeah.
just
So
every book will have different things that
it's
stand out to me more than others, but
yep,
yeah,
yep. Um, the characters were just so good in this that it almost didn't even matter what to me.
yeah,
Like
I,
most of the plot details, because the plot was like the plot almost served as a character development device.
yeah.
Is kind of
I
my
agree. Which
thinking.
that's like honestly the best plots are like ones that you don't feel like you're just waiting for the next event to happen to know what happens next. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good point.
uh,
Something
yeah.
we'll both love.
Okay,
I've
so
been maybe a little off on this. Yeah, because you,
yeah,
it's
I
sort
I
of
definitely loved it.
the narration
But
voice of Demon. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I think I was
it,
guessing that like for both of us, it would be like our top thing.
mm,
Because I would
okay,
say it's probably my top thing. It's just like how much I feel like I am Demon when I'm reading this book. And again, that's
okay.
more true in the first half than the second half. But the,
Mhm.
in fact, a specific thing I'll call out that I didn't really say, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, because I was trying to explain this to Kay, and I just feel like she either didn't agree or I was explaining it poorly and it didn't make sense or some mixture of the two. But there's a specific thing that sometimes authors do with that like is a way that books can be narrated when they're first person, where it
Mhm.
feels like I've read other books where this is true, and it's a thing that in general I just really dislike, which is where you feel like the world is moving faster than the character's brain that you're in. Like you feel like they're always a step behind everything and can't keep
Mhm.
up, and I just don't like it. It's like you don't have to choose to tell the story in that way unless maybe you want to for a specific reason, but I don't enjoy feeling like as the reader narrator I'm like a step behind the events happening in the world.
Mhm.
Um, and that was not true for this book for a lot of it, but then like there was a portion with, and I think maybe it's just because of the drug addiction. Like maybe it was done to prove a point a little bit. I don't know if it was even intentional or not, but I do feel like there was a portion of the book where like it felt like that like some version of that like hazy narrative, just like oh suddenly things are just happening to him instead of him having agency. And like it feels
Yeah.
like for the first half he's the one like lots of shitty things are happening to him, but he's a very active agent in like crafting his outlook and his situation within those brutal things happening to him. And then whereas like later it just starts to feel like it's just he's just along for the ride, like he's just adrift in the sea of the things happening and like kind of
Yeah.
just trying to keep up. And that vibe of that version of narration, I'm again probably not doing a good job of explaining it, but that's the thing I just don't like. And it was like only true for part of the book, but it did take away from that part of the book. But the other like 80% I thought it was really good.
Mhm.
And that specifically that part doesn't mean I didn't like his voice as much, because it was like still him. I didn't feel like he'd lost his personality or anything. It just suddenly felt like, and again maybe it was just like a portrayal of the impact of being on the drugs all the time. It just felt like a, yeah, I guess different level of like agency and different locus of control that he had as a character over his circumstances.
Yeah.
Random
Maybe the
tangent, but I wanted
difference
to throw
in
it out there.
oh yeah, no, all good. I think to your point about when you're reading this, you're just like, wow, I am demon. Um, I didn't get that immersion, but I think
Mm.
that maybe that's because when I was reading this, I was more feeling like, wow, Bryce is demon,
Oh, interesting.
or like
Yeah.
I felt much more like this wasn't, no matter how good the voice was, I wasn't mapping myself onto demon as much as I was mapping or realizing that a
Other
number of
people.
people that I
Yeah.
actually have been good friends with, or and perhaps still am good friends with, are
Hmm.
more likely to
More
relate
overlap.
to demon.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Interesting.
I almost more have thought of it as wow, dirts are demon.
Hmm. Yeah. Fair enough. That's an interesting angle to have like connected to the story that like not that I didn't think about how other people would have had this experience, but it wasn't like how I was like
Mhm.
experientially going through the book. All right, I'm just gonna look. What was the random thing I said you'd emphasize? I didn't know what this
Oh,
was gonna be. Oh yeah, I just thought that you would particularly. This was just me,
yeah,
filling this out before, but I was like, Aaron like
yeah.
definitely always connected with God, what's that movie that we watched back in college with the haunting soundtrack about drug
Oh yeah,
abuse?
Requiem for a Dream.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was like Aaron connected with that. I was like, I bet that will be another just I bet you will. I said, yeah, find like the whole spotlight that the book shines on
yeah,
that aspect of humanity and
and that's very true.
society, like very compelling. So I don't
And
know.
you know what I think is and a good thing to quickly note about that maybe you'll I think you'll almost agree with this too, which is interesting considering our criticism of the book. Uh, is that I when I think of this book, the first main um, problem that I think it's shining a light on is, and the most compelling problem that I think it's shining a light on is drug addiction. But that drug addiction only happens in the book when you and I both agree that the book gets worse.
Yeah,
Right?
some
I
of
suppose there's
that's
drug addiction bits with his mom really early on, and then
yeah,
implied or less dramatic drug addiction throughout most of his childhood. But like,
yep.
uh, um,
And I think my response to that would be some of our like I didn't explicitly say this, but I do kind of agree. I felt like when the football arc started, I was like, this is totally going to be how his character spirals from like an injury or something. It
yeah,
just felt kind of predictable and like a version of a trope, like having to get prescribed, like after how much he'd overcome and stayed away, that then like, oh yeah,
mhm,
he'd get prescribed painkillers and that would be the thing. Which like I guess maybe that's the version of like it having to happen that way. Is like think of how the like sort of jumps in his storyline where he like avoided getting hooked like younger,
mhm,
like so he clearly had enough power of will to like have stayed above it until like he kind of got it, the potent addictive painkillers forced on him in a way. But yeah, so all that to say, I think there's like some specific thing, and then for me it's like the narration changed kind of a part. So
mhm,
there's reasons that like are separate from like that actually being like a thing being focused on about I think why we enjoyed
mhm.
that portion of the book less, but I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
splitting
yeah.
hairs a little bit,
Yep.
but
All right, I'll reveal my last couple things here. There, well, this one's pretty random, probably something we will both love. Uh,
oh, that's actually good. I didn't call that out, but I did really like when he was making the
I,
comic strip. I
yeah,
really enjoyed that. Yeah, I
yeah.
can't believe we didn't
I
talk
thought
about
that
that
was
more
fun.
actually. Yeah,
Uh,
I really liked that he was an artist actually. That was just like a thing I thought was
yeah,
super
yeah.
fun. I felt like I was always rooting. I thought that part of him might just like die. And then when
Mhm,
that became like almost like his core livelihood or I think actually his core livelihood for like a big chunk of the book, like that was pretty fun.
mhm. And it really just makes you like love Tommy.
Yeah, yeah,
That whole
you
part
really
of the
like
book.
Tommy, yeah.
Yeah. And then random thing David will say emphasize. I think I sort of missed on this. I just thought um, you have a lot of firsthand experience with relying on medication for well-being,
True.
and so maybe there'd be some. So I don't know exactly what I thought you would say about
Mm-hmm.
that, but just something perhaps more about
Interesting.
like
Yeah. I almost yeah, I feel like I see the type of drug I take as so different than like painkiller specifically. I feel like that's
yeah,
a
it
specific
definitely is.
type of
Yes,
which I mean it is, but it also is a drug that I rely on to
that
like
kills pain.
people rely on yeah, people rely on painkillers. Like I was on oxycodone for a while, like post
Mm.
that early, like getting better from colitis because I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
sleep. I was on a lot of painkiller. Like I don't know, I am not that knowledgeable, frankly, about like the spectrum of painkillers, but I'm pretty sure I was on some pretty heavy
Mm-hmm.
shit, like for the couple like a month or so when I
Mm-hmm.
was at like the worst state and had lost 30 pounds in a month and also like couldn't sleep from the pain. So like Yeah, I do have like a little bit of first-hand experience there, and I remember like it was quite a high to just be free from the pain. So I can in that sense. This is probably I honestly just like didn't really think about this, which is pretty remarkable that you called it out. But like I didn't really think about that much. But I can see like definitely a version of the runway of just like this pain is killing me, and I think in my experience it was a thing that like just got better once treated,
Mm-hmm.
and so it like not needing to keep taking the painkillers. Like there was like no part of me that felt like I still wanted or needed the painkillers because the pain actually just got better, which isn't necessarily true for many of the other cases that probably like spiral down a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So which obviously, fortunately for me, that's the case. You know,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know.
I
That
need to.
just wasn't a thing that I like honestly thought super deep about. Yeah.
I want to force the conversation quickly to one character who we have completely glossed over, but who I keep wanting to find a way to bring into the conversation. So I'm just forcing it because I think one of the most interesting characters also is she an aunt? Aunt June?
Oh, June. Yeah. We haven't talked much about June.
Who
Yeah,
just like is the voice of the almost like omniscient voice about everything that's gonna happen. Just like yeah, just encourage like strongly advises that even when he just injures his knee that like Demon doesn't get prescribed these medications, but he still just gets them from the crappy doctor. And then she knows that like what's happening and what the results are going to be like the whole way through his addiction, and it's just sad.
Yeah, she's interesting. I can't remember. I think there is a parallel character to her in David Copperfield, but I don't remember like what their profession is or anything because a lot of like the professions are obviously different. But yeah, she is a very interesting central character to the story. Like is never like the character number 2 at any given point in time or whatever, but like is constantly involved in the family, like and like Demon's connections with the other characters always around, and is there. She's like one
mad
character
at her when she doesn't do more.
Even though she's like the only one doing anything with, about it in the society. Like you want her to do more for Demon and for like the people in her life, but she's already like she's trying to fight it at like a larger level than that. And she has like Emmy too. She has like so many. You're like, I don't know how you do more because you have like 100 people. Probably everybody she knows is like basically addicted in some way. So it's like how many like people can you save? Just be Jesus. Come on. But yeah, that is an interesting point. Yeah, that, like you're almost frustrated with her. You feel like she's like the one character capable of doing more than like you see her doing visibly, but she's probably doing like a ton. I mean, she's like working a full-time job doing healthcare, like providing healthcare to the people in the community while also trying to fight some of it like at a larger systemic level, while also trying to like support family, and Demon's not even family. So, yeah.
Oh, and then this is this is mostly unimportant, but just worth throwing in here. Another character we didn't talk about, unsurprisingly, but that it almost feels like a fever dream when you think that this character does exist in the book, is that I'm pretty sure there's just a character in this book who's a severely growth stunted man in a wheelchair who flies a kite with Shakespeare written on it.
That's true. There is, I don't even remember his name.
Yep.
He's like somehow related to his grandma who like lives with his grandma. Yeah. Somehow I don't
everybody loves
know how that character fits in. Yeah, that is actually I don't know if that's a character in the Dickens book, David Copperfield. That's somehow like that. You're bringing that up now, and it sounds completely absurd, but like it didn't like catch my attention that much reading the book.
I don't think I ever would have remembered him except when I looked up the like character, like a list of the character names. And,
what was his name again? Mr. Dick or something? Am I making that up?
I think you might. Yeah, just Dick. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dick. Dick is Betsy's brother and Demon's great uncle. He uses a wheelchair to get around and is doted on by Betsy and Jane Ellen. Dick is a thoughtful, caring person who is obsessed with books. He makes kites and fills the fabric with handwritten quotes from the books he's reading. Okay.
Yeah.
That just why is that in this?
Yeah.
What purpose did he serve?
I don't have a good answer for you there. That's actually a funny one to call out.
Yeah.
Wow. I did forget that character existed before you brought that up.
Yeah.
All right.
Should we
well,
reveal our ratings?
Yeah. So I'll preface this by saying I was very conflicted. I felt like this was a really hard one to rate, and maybe this rating won't be that weird to you. I don't know. Part of what makes this rating feel even a little jarring to me is just like Mom and Kaylee both gave this book a 5-star and thought it was like their book of the year they read it. So like I feel like I'm being harsh when really I'm giving it a rating I think is a totally good rating for like books I read. But I would give it a 3.5, a high 3. It's like between a 3.5 and a 4. It's closer to a 4 than a 3.
Okay. I didn't think about giving half stars. I gave it 4, but I really thought about a 3. So I probably also would have done a 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah. So it makes perfect sense to me. I thought it did things. It's never, this kind of book I think is never going to be a 5 out of 5 for me. Just that it's like, it feels like it has this strong social and political agenda.
Yeah.
And that's just never, I don't suspect that type of book is ever going to hit me as like a 5 out of 5, which I think a 4 is a very good rating.
Yeah, I mean, for me, 4 is like book of the year candidate type. Like you might read a few 4s in a year or whatever.
And then since I also had a number of complaints about the plot, I think I seriously consider 3.5 is probably what I actually give it.
Yeah.
But I think I gave it a 4 on Goodreads where I can't give it half
Goodreads
stars.
doesn't let you do half stars. I mean, do you want me to copy my half-star character that I took me forever to find and make changes to 3.5, or you can?
Sure, do it.
All right, if that's what you feel is more accurate, I don't.
I do feel it's more accurate. Yeah.
We actually had the same. Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I felt like you were closer to me than like when I have talked to others. Like who? And it's the thing that I will try to say very strongly. This is like kind of true with. I don't know. Maybe I'm presenting this different. Like I feel like if I gave an album a 3.5, I'd be like more focused on its goods and its bads. Maybe I don't. Whereas I feel like we talked a lot about the weaknesses. Like there is a lot. Like the book was very easy to read. I really enjoyed it. I very predominantly enjoyed it, other than like some of the minor sort of hiccups in the reading experience that I called out with like kind of the plot arc and stuff. And that's what holds it back from being like I would guess if I read this book any year that I didn't only read 5 books or whatever. Like I don't think this would be my book of the year. So it's definitely not like a total classic top favorite for me, of 5. It's this, but like I think for me 3 is my baseline of like goods outweighed the bad for sure. Glad I read it, but like definitely there's some gaps or flaws that like made either certain parts disappointing or frustrating, or just like held it back. 4 is like very little held it back. It just sort of lacks the extra that makes it a top of all time. Yeah. So I'd say it's like in the middle there. It's like it definitely had more good than bad. I'm really glad I read it. Like I'm really glad I can finally talk with everybody else in my life who's read it about it. Like I just it was good. It was actively enjoyable. I do think I like learned from reading it and really liked a lot of the characters. Thought, and particularly probably my favorite thing about having read it now at this point, like this doesn't mean this is the best part of the book. I just mean like as like after reading that plot description of David Copperfield, just like I was honestly giddy when I was like reading through the plot and like realizing the character nicknames. It was just like a really fun realization. Like, oh, I didn't realize it was like that true to David Copperfield. I knew it was like a reimagining. I just had no idea it was like totally overlaid. So that's like a pretty fun thing to like have realized and stuff. So yeah, like lots of goods, but just things that like held it back from being really great, I would say, for me. Which is like this is where it becomes like murkier than a normal 3.5. Is it's like whenever you have a book, it's like the classic issue with getting really hyped. It's like I'm more disappointed that this is just a 3.5 than I would be for like an average random book. I would give a 3.5 because like I thought there would be a chance that this would be, one of my top favorite books I've ever read, and like that for me definitely
Yeah, for
isn't true.
me, this
So
is about what I expected from it
okay,
because I mostly read books that I'm expecting to be like that I think have 5-star potential because usually I'm reading like classics that have stood the test of time for like
yeah,
a century or more. So that doesn't mean that I give them all 5s, but it just means that it has to take a lot. I mean, I give plenty of those books like 3s,
mm-hmm.
right? And still think they're really good, and so
Yeah,
I'm
yep,
this is in good competition.
mm-hmm.
And I know Barbara Kingsolver. I really liked the Poisonwood
Okay, you
Bible.
read The Poison. I was gonna ask. I know like Mom read that one. I've never read
Mhm.
any of her other stuff, but
Yeah, and then she had this book, The Prodigal Summer, which
mm,
is a weird one because I read it and I kind of thought it was really stupid. I don't really like any of the characters or the plot, but I think about it a fair amount because it had some really interesting history of the American chestnut tree. So it was actually totally worth reading, but I not for the book, but just for the history of the American chestnut tree.
all right. Well, I'll have to dig into that. Probably won't, but
Yeah.
that's funny that stood out. I love when there's random stuff like that sticks with you from a book.
Yeah, it's kind of like how I feel about Wally Lamb's catalog of books. To be honest, like I know this much is true. Fantastic, fantastic book, and then
Mm-hmm.
I've read most of his other stuff, and it's I think it's pretty forgettable. But like
Mm.
his book, The Hour I First Believed, has a lot of interesting history about the Columbine shooting,
Mm.
and so I don't remember anything about that book other than the history of the Columbine shooting. I learned from it, but at least that's something.
Yeah, interesting. All right, well, this has been fun. Thanks for
Yeah.
throwing out the idea that we should do this. I feel like it would be definitely. I mean, I'd love to do more, but I don't think we should
Mhm.
pick a book right now or plan it prior
Yeah,
to our
yeah,
family vacation coming up to Disney
yeah.
World. So, because that's like gonna, like I said, fast forward to mid-April by the time I'm like back in regular life again. So I feel like once I've normalized again after that, and then it'll be close to summer too. Like that, we can reconnect and maybe line up
Or we
what
could
we
just
think.
pick Infinite Jest. We'll talk in 2 weeks.
Oh my
If you start the
gosh.
audiobook now, it'll be done in 2 weeks,
Oh,
I
wow.
think. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
it'd be fun to just like whenever I'm like, yeah, I think I'm ready to read a book. I might like just shoot you a text and be like, hey, is there like a book you want to review next, or I could throw out because I actually have some on my want to read shelf too that I feel like you'd be interested in. Like you've either read
yeah, yeah,
before and maybe would reread with me, or like might find interesting, so I could like look at it through that lens.
yeah.
So
That'd be. I would be happy to, and I'll pretty much read anything. I'm finally getting through a ton of books, so it doesn't slow me down very much to add another, even if it's not a book I would have otherwise read. It's nice to just read books that other people are also reading. So.
yeah, I always enjoy that. All right, well, I'm going to sign off the stream here. So thanks everyone who tuned in or watched the review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully, we'll have more to come. Till next time.